not reinforcement learning, and
From this point on, everyone has to obey the rules.
yeah, that's right. That's right. This is our chance. Yeah, we can solve this.
That's how it works, eh?
Oh, that's funny.
So people ask questions by posting them in the chat.
Well, they can do, yeah, oh, that's right. So yeah, that's right. The people who aren't panelists have to do that. So I guess, well, it's 2 more minutes according to the Berkeley rules. But we have, oh no, we've got participants are coming in. So anybody out there, post some crazy question to start the discussion going, if anybody feels like it. Participants out there.
By the way, just to clarify, I'm not officially on the panel. I'm just
no.
here, right?
But we can
yeah.
put you on the spot.
Right? Questions like this is my time off. So
yeah,
we can
no, sure, no, absolutely,
on the spot by asking questions. I think we allow since your face is there, we can.
Oh, that's right, Chaba. True or false? Stochastic adaptive control from 1980s is reinforcement learning.
Yes. No. Maybe.
It's false, right? I mean, to some extent, because I think there's some elements of it in reinforcement learning, but I think it's different from adaptive control. Although these days a lot of people are doing adaptive control and calling it reinforcement learning.
Yeah, I know that's one of the reasons I thought of that. But if you look at the minimum variance adaptive control, you're trying to solve a really boring optimal control objective, and all you care about is the output variance, and you're doing it purely online.
Different sort of, at least in adaptive control that I remember, people estimate the parameters of the system and then control it based on that. But the thing about reinforcement learning is that you don't need to even need to know what how many states there are in the system, and that's a huge difference.
Well, that's what they say, but the theory is different than the dream, right?
And the other way around as well, like in adaptive control, people did have the direct methods, and actually like the same random search showed an appearance in the 80s or something like that. I forgot the name, but like these things are going around in the at the same time, I think there's a lot of new stuff that's happening, and then a lot of emphasis on computation, right? So that's kind of the perspective that's a little bit different, right? Like if you were doing adaptive control at the time, maybe you would even write things with continuous time, for that matter, right? Like maybe get rid of the noise. I mean, like that's the main body of work that happened in adaptive control.
Also, much of the work, if I remember, was asymptotic.
Oh yeah, like and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Of course, I mean, it's like after some planes went down, everyone was jumping on. Let's prevent that.
Yeah, and we ran away from Kalman at that time. Yeah.
It almost seems like the thread that were pursued by adaptive control, and maybe more specifically stochastic adaptive control and reinforcement learning, they're kind of merging, because the focus there was more on continuous state space and particularly linear system models, whereas linear reinforcement learning was focused on tabular models. And then you increasingly see people now trying to go, not necessarily Chaba, you don't agree?
Absolutely not. I think that reinforcement learning started with this functional approximation.
Yeah. Sorry?
Maybe what you're thinking about is that people realized at one point that all that they're doing is dynamic programming. They were very happy with the tabular thing because finally they were able to prove theorems. But that shouldn't be confused with what the field was about. The field was about this, checkers, like let's solve checkers. It was very clear that you will not be able to build a table for that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
Sutton's algorithm
I-
for linear function approximation is from at least 1988.
85.
85? Okay, yeah, something like that.
Seidman, Schweitzer. Actually, Bamon did it already with splines. And then there is this paper that I like to popularize, which basically goes through all the ADP algorithms without any analysis, but it just proposes all of them.
Uh-huh.
Schweitzer and
that?
Seidman. It's an operation system paper, I think, or something like that.
Schweitzer and Seidman. What?
Yeah.
Really?
Like in that paper, you find you approximate, I don't know, like there are no Q functions. Okay, so no action value functions. But without, like, besides that, it's pretty much everything.
There seems to be some question.
There's a question here. Okay.
All right.
But yeah, we'll come back to history. That's fun. Major issue. Let me read this. I have a question related to Sean's talk. A major issue of the standard formulation is that the gain should be large in the beginning but slow at the end. Newton-Raphson gets rid of this problem by converting the dynamics to a linear one, and it's making everything easier. The downside is we get a second-order method. That's for sure. What about the alternative of doing a form of gain adjustment, gradient descent? I mean, I love that. I mean, yes. I mean, so I gave one example where I wanted high gain far away and low gain nearby. I could have easily cooked things up so it was different, but there should be a way of adaptive gain selection in a dynamic way, especially since it's a bit of robustness. You know, you can get away with with some sloppiness. So and I know people have tried to work on this. I mean, Warren Powell had an entire NSF grant on adaptive gain selection for reinforcement learning. I don't know where that went, but no, it's a good point, because we definitely want to get away. We want some sort of compromise. You know, being able to fully linearize the dynamics, like with this Newton-Raphson flow, is beautiful, but it's way, as you say, it can be way too complex most of the time. We need some sort of compromise. So what I was thinking, something similar to the MIT rule in adaptive control. I mean, the MIT rule which killed the pilot. No, but we're not going to put it on an airplane, so it's okay. Oh, can anybody comment on that? On like how the MIT rule? How I'd have to review that, but anybody else have a comment on that?
Yeah, like where were the PR people of MIT when someone was able to call this through the MIT? And the lawyers.
Yeah. Oh man.
I have a broad question if there are no other questions. So I guess, I mean, much of the success of reinforcement learning is based on offline training, massive amounts of data and things like that. Whereas the original theory was for online. I mean, you're learning and you're controlling at the same time. And Ben Van Roy talks about artificial general intelligence. I mean, humans don't learn with, you're given millions and millions of miles of driving data and then you start learning to drive. That's not how we do things. So since Csaba is in DeepMind, what do you think, Csaba? What is the state of online reinforcement learning, and are there successes?
Remember, this is my line break, guys. I don't know. Should I answer this question? Well, I think that the field broadens and it's okay. Like, and this happened way back. I remember it was some ICML like over 20 years ago where I think Damian Ernst and also Scheimanner were like talking to me about that. Hey, like, you know, this batch thing, like we should all do the batch thing. That's the important thing, because no one allows us to run our algorithms online because they're unsafe, but they are willing to give us data. So why don't we look at that? I think that, like, okay, that was the bad thing. And then I think that people found it too hard at the time. to, like, no one was really excited about at the time about running things in simulators. And so there was no fantasy of that, like you would just use a lot of compute. I guess there was not a lot of compute. And then you would like train something in a simulator and deploy, like that was not existent. So the only reason people started to look at the simulation model is because it was just easier to analyze. So there is the parallel simulation model that, I don't know, Shem maybe was involved and sat in there, and I would need to think who exactly was the culprit. But the theorists started this simulation optimization thing because it's just easy to analyze. But then, of course, the experimentalist people didn't care, and they just run things anyways. And it seems to work. And I would say that I'm really excited about all this work and the prospects of using learning together with optimization in an offline scenario in a clever way, as a way of, you know, preparing your algorithms, like as a way of programming. Like these big words, and like seems that it means not much, but I think it's a completely new way of thinking about how you can program robots, for example, or how you solve complicated problems, rather than thinking long and hard about how to come up with a compressed representation of a system. Why don't you have the computer do part of the job, right? Like in the past, we were really like, you guys did a lot of work, I guess, about this reduced order representation, or like using diffusions and then being clever about what to do things. But it's great. Maybe that knowledge is going to be useful one day. I hope it will. But at the same time, people overlooked the possibility of just using computers more on the optimization side. And I think that that is a good reason for that, because compute power was just not there that would make it viable. But these days, it's totally there. So this opens up new possibilities.
Yeah, and people have been really disappointed doing.
Alex, maybe Alex could make a comment. I see that he's here.
Yeah.
More people.
That's right.
On a little bit of the offline side as well, and this simulation-based optimization is actually a terminology that I'm stealing from them.
Oh God, it's too bad that Alex. Is there any way to allow Alex to?
You're talking to me?
Oh, you can. Oh, good. Okay, cool. Because it would be good to get your input on this. Yeah.
Did you hear what
I was just listening. Okay.
Yeah. Well, basically, this was an attack on the controls community that instead of, we use the computing power and forget about all this model reduction and then synthesize the control or whatever. Let the computers do the work.
I'm saying it's an attack, but it's
it's sort of like, but it's. I mean, I'm with you.
The challenge for sure.
Yeah.
I don't.
That's something we worked on a lot.
I don't see any contradiction. It's a different type of problems that we consider.
Yeah.
So what you wanted me to?
Actually, I'm curious about the like you've been in operations research, and in operations research, people talk about simulation-based optimization since for a long time. And do you like, okay, so how did it started? Like, I'm really curious about that. Like, why do people look at simulation of, because when I first met this thing, it was like totally weird. It was like, either I want to do this online, or maybe I want to do it based on a batch of data. But the fact that I build a simulator first, and then I use that to come up with a good controller or whatnot, is what it felt a little bit strange.
First of all, simulation optimization is the different communities which understand it quite differently.
Okay.
Okay. And for example, it was long ago they started in global optimization, which didn't lead anywhere, I think. Also, there was a lot of talk about that things. So what I was talking is somewhat very specific. This was which revolutionized the stochastic, what I will call stochastic programming. This is a way how to solve optimization problem involving, say, no expectations, because it's going back to basic Monte Carlo ideas. Mm-hmm. So again, this is the way how this in that area is that we can sample from something. We even don't need to observe this model exactly, but the whole point we can sample from them. And then the whole theory says how to use it efficiently in order to solve problem, because from deterministic point of view, this problem are intractable. It's very easy to show from the beginning. And this was a long way because this stochastic programming going backward to origins of linear programming, if you may know, Danzig formulated that. And so linear programming, they were lucky and it worked. Not immediately. It took something 40 years before it started to be practical. Maybe even more, right? But this idea of these scenarios that they used didn't work. Or it was just, but then this, because just to compute expected value in multivariate case is not possible accurately, in principle. But this is all these ideas, this theory and algorithms which were developed, they went in different directions. I don't know if the control community can learn something that we certainly would like to learn from control community.
I mean, this electric car companies use a lot of simulation-based optimization. So they drive the car and then get the data, and then they have a model in their offices. I mean, I visited a few of them, and they use that to refine the controllers. By controllers, they mean trajectory planners. And then they go and drive the car again, get more data, do the same thing. But it's really built on having a very good simulator in the office, because I mean, like Chaba mentioned earlier, you can't drive a car and you can't learn to drive a car on the road. You have to already know some amount of driving. You can try to make it more efficient, but you can't be crashing the car, right? So kind of interesting. So they go drive the car, get data about other drivers, what their behavior looks like, and then they use a bunch of collection of models for how aggressive the driver behavior is.
But again, you see, there's a different ways how you can look at it. When I talked about that, it was something very specific way of doing optimization, because simulation is very big area. Now everything is simulated. Right? So because of that, even simulation optimization, different people understand very differently. But maybe, I don't know, this, if I look MDP models, market decision processes, and again, it has a very long history with a lot of theoretical developments, but the applications of that are somewhat limited.
Except that now it seems that they are everywhere. Yeah, with like whatever you see in reinforcement learning, it's the same thing. It's like there is an MDP underneath. Okay, maybe the state is not observable, and then you build some observer state representation or whatnot. But you run approximate value iteration or approximate policy iteration, some version of it. There's zillions of versions of it, and there are really exciting problems that you can solve with this simulation-based optimization technology that we were not able to get even close to solving, just because you're like have to give credit to the neural network folks, right? They work with high dimensional observations, and like somehow like that doesn't bother the algorithms that much. It's,
you see what I mean, the solve, right? You run some computer, and my telephone can translate from one language to another. This is science fiction 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And
No question about that.
Like
but we in OR, we wanted to solve that. We wanted to give certain guarantee of solving that. You don't care about it, right?
I think that people could care or would care, but of course, in the worst case, nothing is going to work. And then the delicate job is to figure out what are the operating conditions, what are the unknowns, what are the knowns, like how do you describe the problem such that you can guarantee something meaningful. And that's really challenging because, well, for the first place, we're using the simulators because we're not able to do that. We don't have very good characterization of what type of problems we want to solve. We can write the simulators. In that sense, we know the problem that we want to solve, but the properties that make a solver possible for the type of problems we want to solve are unknown, right? And so then that's the detective work that should need to happen if you really want to have guaranteed. But people still want to have robust algorithms, right? So they don't want an algorithm that if you try it on the next problem, it's going to break.
Let me ask a simple question. Yeah. Do you care about all this, if it is guarantees and all that? Do you care about it?
I'm a theorist, so like my heart breaks if we don't have the guarantees. But the question is whether the people who are going to run these experiments or these simulation-based optimization, whether they care about the guarantees. I think the answer is that they don't per se care about the guarantees. They care about whether the algorithm is going to be performant, right? No one really likes to use more compute than what they need to use. And currently, everyone feels that we are already stretching the limits of what we can do with the compute. And we can solve amazing problem, or like, okay, so solve, like, I'm going to use this word solve in the layman way, which means that like, it looks good, right? Like it's that
yes.
like,
I agree with you.
What is doing what it was supposed to do. It seems that like, if you're exposing the robot to all these tasks, then it passes the task, it's great, it feels great. And so, that's the thing, but like no one is really happy about when you're running your algorithm and then, you know, like the performance goes up and then it collapses and then it goes up and collapses. And next run, a different random seed, it does something crazy and it's not reliable. And maybe after doing it for 1 billion random seeds, eventually it does something. It's not that bad, but people want to have more robust algorithms. And so as a theoretician, I think our input could be that we can just give them more robust algorithms. And one way of doing that is through theoretical analysis, by thinking long and hard about what doesn't make sense. Our job is to prune away the branches that grow out, which go nowhere.
I don't know. I see that at the moment, I see around me all my students, your point of view is win, right? Everybody's machine learning now and then. I don't know what will happen. I cannot say that what I show, we have this spectacular successes of that. Okay? The progress is slow, right? And if we want to give certain type of guarantees, the complexity analysis is very pessimistic in principle. So we solve certain type of problems, but nothing spectacular like that. I don't know what will happen. Maybe it will in the future, it will be something. I don't know.
Sean, there is a question or comment.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, but wait, it's actually more for you, Shaba. So, sorry to drag you in, kicking and screaming, but there's Amir has a follow-up question for you. Can you see that?
Is it for me? Maybe everyone. Following Shaba's point that maybe we can rely more on computation power of modern computers. I'd like to know what you think about approaches common in the community that try to learn algorithms themselves. Maybe you can learning to learn, etc. I'm thinking of using neural Turing machines. Yeah, you can take it too far for sure. Amir Masood, do you think? And it may be considered a hubris for a theory community. No, I don't think that we should be so sensitive to this. So maybe we can use some of formal verification to provide a guarantee on the learn methods. Yeah, I'm not sure about the formal verification, but I think that taking it to the next level and thinking about learning to learn and whatnot, if you have more compute, maybe you can solve harder problems. Or maybe if it appears that you're making the problem harder, but it's actually not that much harder. So I don't think that this should be outside of the scope of what we in the theory community are thinking about. Absolutely not. I think we should embrace the possibility of using computers for doing the work that we used to do. That's great. We still want to know, like, what are the limits of doing this, and like, how should you do this in a sensible way? Are there, like you see talks and like, for example, Shrikant was talking about, hey, people, like, if you use double Q learning, at least please double the learning, the step size. Or Aditya's talk, he says that, oh, if you're looking at Q learning and you're plotting things, don't plot like whether Q learning converges. That doesn't make any sense. Plot whether the span norm converges, right? Things like that. Like, these are valuable contributions and can change how people are interpreting results, right? So you're plotting, for example, whether Q learning converged, and you think that, oh, I'm tuning the hyperparameters to make it converge faster, but like, that makes it and it's going to converge slowly anyways in that metric, but that metric is not important. And so it's a very valuable contribution. So like, even small things like that can help a lot, I think. I don't know whether
I think
I have a hard stop and I have to leave. Good seeing you, everybody. So
yeah. Thanks a lot, Shrikant. It's great to see you.
Yeah, bye. So, one way to maybe think about this, there's a gap between, RL and RL algorithms and theory and simulation-based design, and that's physics, right? So when we simulate, I mean, we essentially are simulating the physics, right? Usually it's problems of that kind. And I think how to sort of incorporate that in a meaningful way, that is sort of missing. And, there is this question about formal verification that was raised, or not necessarily a question, but as a goal. I think unless it is not to say that we do have model-based RL algorithm, right? But the models are very simplistic, and the problem that we want to apply this to, the models are really complicated. And so if you want guarantees, I mean, Shrikant was talking about autonomous driving. I don't know if RL can solve the autonomous driving problem, but there are many other simpler robotics problems that one could try to solve. So incorporating the physics somehow, I think that is...
You have a good point, and I think RL is missing out like some part, like the mainstream RL, I should say, is kind of missing out on this quite a bit. But here, I don't necessarily think about that you should start, you should go back and then start to write the equations again and then feed the model parameters or whatnot. But in control, you have so many other ideas that people were pushing around that are going unused in reinforcement learning. For example, this loop shaping, right? So that you can have like loops in loops and gradually transform control problems into other control problems that are easier to solve, and so on and so forth. Can directly use physics, right? Like there you can use insight or decentralization and whatnot. Like, use physics in ways which do not directly look as using physics, but it does actually use the structure of the problem. I don't know what, Sean, what do you think?
Oh, no, definitely. I mean, it's just, I mean, the way in which flight control works is this beautiful hierarchical structure. And as you say, the ailerons have their own little control loops, so they look very linear and simple. And that's all local. And because it's so simple, it makes the global control problem simpler. You have a simple linear system. And then there's a big loop around that. And they can get away with these just really, really naive control laws because of the architecture. Yeah, and what's so sad though is it's like they've developed that so beautifully for flight control, and then in power systems it's pretty cool. All the droop on the generators is one local loop and semi-local. I mean, this is a cool. That's the trouble. Every field seems to have their own hierarchical control strategy to solve their problem. And one problem with RL is it's trying to solve everything. It's.
But maybe that's also the strength. But by the way, that this view of that you decentralize and whatnot can be also easily challenged because maybe computers just like are powerful enough so that you don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's the intuition, though. I mean, it's so nice for there to be a control of an engineer in the control room in the power system, or in the, or at Delta Airlines, who really has intuition about why the plane is working so well. And they see some oscillation at some frequency. They have some intuition about why. It's so nice to have that. It's reassuring on these really, really critical applications.
So
somehow you can get stuck with this intuition, though, right? Like think about the game of Go, right?
Oh, tell me, yeah.
You play the game of Go at an extremely high level compared to the layman, so they have a lot of intuition, and very good people tried to write on the intuition into rules that may complement the game of Go. And eventually, what wins is a learning system, a answer system, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of elusive sometimes. These intuitions are good for capturing some basic stuff, but like, do they go all the way? Probably not. And then when computers are becoming powerful enough, maybe we should just like bend our knees and then say that, okay.
Oh, that's so funny.
Your turn.
John Doyle, are you here? John? It's just the fact is that we'd have, I mean, so John Doyle, I mean, maybe he stopped now, but he used to, in every meeting like this, we talk about optimization and fragility, and sort of this sort of necessary evil that as soon as you optimize, you're fragile.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And so
optimization criterion encompasses robustness by definition.
Yeah, if it can, that's not easy. Yeah.
So I think what
easy optimizing it is not easy, right?
Yeah.
So Chaba, what you said actually kind of raises a question, which is it just a matter of just throwing more and more compute power and better hardware and all that, right? And we can solve RL can solve every problem, or do you think there's as we want to go to more and more? I mean, there was some allusion earlier to artificial general intelligence. So as you want these systems to do more complicated things and display some high level reasoning. So do you think more compute power is going to be enough, or something more is needed?
I think that
in the framework or otherwise.
I think I don't think that we do have the answer to all this, and then just need to scale up compute, and then suddenly you're gonna have a robot that serves me the beer. Like even that thing is a little bit beyond, I think, our capabilities.
Yeah, this century. Yeah.
But I think that people are still underestimating, and I'm probably also underestimating what computers can do. It's really mind-boggling.
Yeah.
They are so different and foreign that like we have a hard time accepting that differently than us, and maybe
there's a new question here.
We'll find. Portable quantum.
All right. That's it.
Fusion reactor under a bot, like just.
That's it. It's like a SIM card. Yeah, that's right. That's a SIM card right there. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, talking about the bitter lesson, right?
Yeah.
So his conclusion is kind of, well, he calls it a bitter lesson because people have a hard time accepting that sheer compute can do things that seemed really hard, like solving particle problem instances that seem really hard. And of course,
yeah.
And of course, so when you ask me about like whether computers can do, like we know a lot of negative results what they can do, right? But it's always the question whether this next instance that you care about, like, is that a hard instance for this type of algorithm or not?
So I have a follow-up question on that. So
this is not good.
I mean,
like
so currently we almost have, well, not we, but maybe DeepMind and Googles of the world, they have access to data center scale computing. So what are there problems that are even hard for data center scale computing? And now we're asking for I don't know, even larger scale computing. We cannot solve those problems because even data center scale computing is not enough. I mean, it seems like we have enough compute power, right? I mean, we have gone beyond supercomputing and all that.
The sad state is that we only know if we try, and then we may fail. That's what's going on, right? Like people are trying, and people are failing, and when they stop failing, then you hear it in the news.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And there is, I wish that there was some way of measuring problem complexity, or like, like how do we estimate whether it's time to solve some problem with whatever solution techniques we have. Well, usually you can start counting, like measuring things, and then you have an estimate that, okay, with this much compute, I can do it. Not in these problems. So that's the sad thing. And then that goes back to that we don't have a good way of describing the problems we can solve, and we don't have a good way of assessing the complexity of the problems that we want to solve in terms of those measures that we don't even know.
Yeah.
But like, this is something interesting that I think theory could contribute, right? Like know before you start, or like have an estimate of whether you can finish.
Wow.
It's really hard because we're talking about individual instances, and
yeah, exactly.
Of course, you're gonna need general characteristics of these instances. Some of the instances are going to be super easy in a hard class, and some of them are going to be super hard, depending on which algorithm you choose, right?
Yeah.
So it's a messy thing, but it's not completely impenetrable, hopefully. I mean, as a theoretician, you should stop believing that you can make a difference in the world.
Yeah. Oh boy, so I guess, I mean, the official schedule is that we run now to get the free margaritas, right? Yeah, I think the schedule says we go off to get. Oh wait, so yes. So but let's answer this question. So panelists, what do you think of meta learning, and how is this going to help RL? And I think I'm not qualified. Rahul, you're qualified, aren't you?
I don't know much about it. Maybe Chaba, you can begin. And Chaba, do you want to take that first?
We already touched upon this, right? So I mean, my question was kind of like going in the same direction, and my short answer is that it's great. Meta learning is really fascinating, and theory is. I'm working on some problems related to meta learning, and it's really nice and fascinating. It's wide open. I encourage everyone to.
Yeah. So I think I mean, this is going to be it is an exciting area, but it's going to be very exciting given in the future. But I think that we have to find the right framework in which to think about it. I don't think we have found it yet. And that is true for many problems in RL, not just meta learning, going beyond the core RL, right? And so maybe in the future, we'll figure that out.
In theory, you do two things. You define problems and then you solve problems, right? So, and then you do it back and forth
Right.
with it. And for meta learning, it's like there is this challenge I can talk about, the paper that we submitted and will be rejected soon based on the reviews, it seems. But I'm still very happy with the paper. It talks about meta learning, and it talks about this phenomenon that like I think a lot of people were wondering about, or are wondering about, that in the worst case, of course, meta learning is not going to have. Your tasks are completely independent of each other. There is no common structure to be shared, and so you can either go for a best case analysis when you're making some strong assumptions, and then if the assumptions hold, then you show that the meta learning algorithm somehow can uncover structure, latent variables, whatnot, and then can do better on future tasks than it was able to do before. There are very few papers that are doing this, but there are some really nice new ones that just came out. So that's like the best case analysis. And then the worst case analysis, a lot of people were doing worst case analysis in the past. Those results are so disappointing because in the worst case, you can't do much. You can prove that you're not going to lose much compared to the private learner. But then it happens that there is something in between. So sometimes you can characterize how hard a meta learning problem is, depending on the structure of the instance. And I think that there is a lot of possibility for that. And that's the paper that we wrote. That goes there, tries to do this in a too simple setting for the taste of the reviewer. So the paper is going to be rejected. But I think it's good. Like we can do more of this, and it's really interesting. So there, the question is, okay, you have a family of problems, and the problem itself defines how you want to exploit the structure of the individual instances, right? So that the problem definition itself should dictate whether meta learning should have, whether the tasks have some similarity or whatnot. So people talk about transfer, for example, in MDPs, right? So when you have a bunch of MDPs and then random sampling them, and that's your new task, and then you want to know whether you're going to transfer. Well, in the worst case, you're not going to transfer anything. In the best case, a lot of things are shared. Maybe all the problems are the same. Then you're going to transfer everything. And there are cases in between, and what you want to build is an algorithm that figures out whether there is much to be transferred. So that's kind of like the vanilla version of this meta learning, let's say, in the framework of reinforcement learning. But of course, meta learning may not need to stop there, right? Like that is just the standard first idea of that tasks are coming at random and you want to perform well on the next task. That's just one model. Like you can have so many different models. So I think it's very nice.
So this question nobody has raised so far, so maybe I will raise it, which is machine learning broadly, and not excluding RL. So in particular vision, let's say, right? So they are faced with the question of how to go from 99% accuracy to beyond, right? I mean, 99% accuracy is not good enough for many applications, right? So RL has not faced such a question yet. So how right, in the sense that, okay, something, you design an algorithm and that the fact that it will work 99% of the time is not going to be good enough. How is that going to be answered? How do we, so I mean, how do we think about that? I mean,
Are you talking about like issues related to deployment, like for example, safety and whatnot?
Yeah, right.
I think that you go with the good old engineering practices. So whenever we don't have an answer, we just say engineers are going to solve it.
But RL is going to take over the world at some point. So we will be responsible for everything.
Good practices, so okay.
The engineers will fix their algorithms. Yeah.
No, it's not about fixing the algorithms. It's about the verification part. I think it's like
okay.
They also
Right.
fix things, but so if you want to know whether you are like your system is safe to deploy, what do you do? Like well, you expose it to a bunch of standardized tests until everyone's tired.
Right. But you know, there's the in complicated problems, you will always keep on finding corner cases. It's never going to end.
Yeah. Autonomous vehicles seem so intractable.
Right? Like a lot of
Sorry?
times, and people grow into. I think it's not like that. Like we shouldn't believe that we will ever have absolute truths, right? Like absolute truths maybe doesn't even exist or what?
No, it doesn't. That is true, but you know, a model would be, for example, you know, we at least for most people prior to, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. So, so you know, most people, you know, feel fairly comfortable, you know, climbing onto a plane and flying somewhere else, right? Until the last couple of years, when you know, a very small fraction of people at least started to have second thoughts. So I mean that is not there is no 100% guarantee that something will not go wrong, but there is very high assurance that the plane is not going to fall out of the sky.
Social like belief system that makes you believe that there is a very high assurance, and like because like of the history of the whole thing, people got convinced that we have sufficient proof that it works, and it seems to work. And I don't see why that wouldn't happen if you have this complicated household robot that was, you know, trained with some algorithms, and like no one really knows how it works, but it's been around and it never hurt anyone, and it always drinks the beer. And you expose it to various tests, and like you're poking it different ways, and it doesn't fail. And then eventually you get convinced that it's safe. It's pretty serious though, like the type of task that you would expose this thing to. But it like this is what I call the normal engineering practice. I think the normal engineering practice can still be applied. I don't think that there is much. I mean, like the systems that we already build are incredibly complex, right? Like it's mind-boggling how many parts a plane is going to have. So once I walked into the office of a guy who is working on verification, and he had this big poster that showed a Boeing, I don't know, whichever plane it was. And like you could like use a magnifying glass and still see details, and then it's like different scales, and that's probably not even scratching the surface of like how big the systems are. And okay, big systems are here. Somehow we managed to keep them safe. I don't think that like just the fact that there is a learning algorithm there with a neural network is going to stop anyone believing that, like in these big systems, the verification algorithms occasionally do find bugs, right? Does it mean that
verification is only as good as the model, right? That's
does it mean that they found all the bugs? Does it mean that it's absolutely safe? No, but like up to a degree of satisfaction that feels that like or due diligence. I think the importance is due diligence. You shouldn't be lazy if you want to deploy something like that. Like being lazy is not something that's
that was the problem with Boeing. It said like well, you think about the virus situation right now. just incredible. And the UK is going to be our guinea pigs. They're going to be the final. If they don't die, then we get to have them next year. That was the news today. The UK has volunteered to test the virus for us in the US. Yeah, it is incredible amount of
it's like
money that goes into verification. Yeah.
How do you know it's safe?
Yeah, and we won't. Yeah, not until everyone gets a shot. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right. That's fun.
Yeah.
But I still bet that this hierarchical point of view in engineering is going to stay. You know, that you're going to just because it's easier to you can test subsystems and get more confidence that way.
It's a very
Alpha. Oh well, this I cannot answer. Okay, this is for you, Chaba. What do you think about AlphaFold 2? Whoa.
What is the next version? So let's do the next version of yeah, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I wanted to make a joke, but it's not a good joke.
Okay.
I don't know. Actually, evolutionary algorithms. There is at least one very nice book that is about the theory of evolutionary algorithms, and I really like that. So I wanted to say.
Who's that?
Oh, I should send it to you. It's a Springer book, and it's written by mathematicians, and it's all full of Markov chain analysis. You will love it.
Yeah.
I will post there what this book is. Because I forgot the title. I read it years ago, and it asks these questions. Okay, like you guys claim that evolutionary algorithms solve everything, but okay, let's keep it simple and easy. Can it solve commutator optimization problems for which we know that polynomial time solutions exist?
Oh yeah, right.
Can't do that, then don't make claims. But or they show that it can. For all the problems that they looked at, they're able to show, okay, it's not optimal polynomial orders or whatnot, but it's okay, right? Like to have a general tool that you can throw at problems. You don't have to think that's
yeah.
I guess we are going back to this days where people were really excited about evolutionary algorithms. I got disillusioned about them because of the two big claims that people were making. That's not good, but they may have a role, right? So it's not an all or nothing.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm told we're out of tequila, so we don't have to worry about Gathertown. There's no food margaritas today, but Friday.
All right, I should go.
Yeah, I guess the meeting should be adjourned at this point. One of us is very tired. Yeah, well, I mean, boy, thank you, participants. Thank you, speakers. What a blast! I love this community. It's awesome.
All right, thank you.
So bye for now.
Yeah, thank you. See you.